Hey Jason, welcome to the Profit and Grit Show. How you doing today?
I'm good, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm really excited to have an opportunity to talk with you. I know a lot about CEO Ware. I've researched him. I've ran into him in circles. So I'd love to just start, if you could just share a little bit about yourself, what you're doing these days professionally, and then maybe something about yourself personally.
Yeah, sure. So, been in the trades industry. Jason Noel. I live in Indiana. Have my whole life. Been around, ironically, been around the trades my whole life. My dad was actually a plumber. I saw what a toll it took on his body. He made a very nice career out of it, but was beat up pretty bad, as most of you plumbers and tradespeool know. Had no interest in being a plumber because I always say like that work was too hard for me. So like I wasn't smart enough to be a plumber. So I ironically got into the industry in year 2000 as a manager, right? So I couldn't be a plumber, or I didn't want to be a plumber, so I became a manager. I was hired in 2000 by a local company here in Indianapolis. Throughout from 2000 to 2022, I believe it was. Worked with three different companies as general managers and operations managers to help turn some of those businesses around. And been with CEO Warrior for 4 years. It was 4 years here in January. And we help business owners do exactly what I've done for the last 22 years prior to me coming here. So just helping them grow their businesses, become profitable, and a lot of them trying to get out of a truck. And yeah, that's my quick 26-year history in the trades. Personally, my passion is my boat. My passion's my family. However, my best place to be is on my boat on the weekends at our lake in southern Indiana. So we have an RV down there. We stay down there. We go down there for the boat. That's my time to get away from all the noise and all the busyness for a couple of days. And that's where I love to spend my time with my family.
That sounds like fun. That sounds awesome. Hey, so just getting kind of going through your journey here, I'd love to learn. So, of those 26 years, I know you spent about 14 years under American Residential Services, or I think you may have had two stints, but this one particularly was 14 years. I want to talk about you had three different trades under that one roof. I kind of want to go through take me through what did running three trades under one roof, what did that kind of teach you that is a lot more than just if you hear about it? Like what were your takeaways in actually experiencing it?
Yeah, so my apologies, Tyler. I may have misspoke, but my first 14 years were with Clockwork Home Services.
Okay,
It was the Ben Franklin 1 hour Mr. Sparky franchises, and then we became a company-owned location, which
got
was
it.
purchased by Clockwork, which then in turn was purchased by Direct Energy. So that was the whole. I wasn't ARS. This comes later.
Got it.
So that was my first 14 years through. I started with a local company, went through franchisee, went through buyouts, went through acquisitions, and that was the 14-year journey to small location to very large location through buyouts, acquisitions, and just growth. I believe your question was, what was it like working in a
Multi-trade, yeah.
three multi-trade? So I think it was absolutely fantastic. And here's why, because we could share leads, we could share marketing, we could share what our goal there was to own the home, right? So we could go in and take care of plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, which doesn't leave a whole lot left to do, right, in the home. So we could own the home. So we had club memberships that had involved all three trades. So it was great to be able to cross market, cross generate leads from other departments, and just being able to own the home was the biggest thing there.
Got it. When do you so a client you're working with a client. At what point do you say to that client, hey, it's time you introduce electrical or it's time you introduce plumbing, in addition to your HVAC? How do you know when that's right? And what's your thought process around how do you introduce that into the business so that it doesn't become a distraction or a money suck?
So how do you introduce it into the business, not to the
Yeah.
client?
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, when do you bring that trade into the business and go, okay, I'm
Gotcha.
ready to take on the employees, I'm ready to take on the risk related to
Yeah.
growing this trade, that type of thing.
Yeah, great question. So we work with that a lot now here at CEO Warrior because a lot of business owners view it as that's another revenue stream,
Right.
an easy revenue stream, right? We know being in the trade, you laugh because nothing's easy. So
Right.
like we really focus on whatever they're doing, whatever their primary trade is, that we get really dialed in and we make sure we go deeper before we go wider, before we expand out. So you nailed it when you said it's a huge distraction, and it's really making sure everything's in place. So someone, whether it be the owner or an operations manager, a management team, can take on that extra trade and grow it without it pulling away from the primary trade. So that it's just really diving into financials, processes, right? Making sure everything's clean. It's never going to be perfect, as we know, but making sure everything's clean before we dive into that distraction because it can really hurt the primary trade.
Got it. If you were going to roll out another trade or you were going to have a client do one of your clients do this, do you have any methodology that you would say to do it? Like, do you try to hire within? I guess it might be hard. You may not have an electrician, but how do you do
Right.
that where you're able to cross into a new trade and do it? And I'll give you a real world example. So I had a client, they're having a challenging time on the HVAC side there in California. Weather's kind of moderate, so
Mhm.
their work was just inconsistent and it was just challenging. So they really doubled down on electrical, and that has been a real entryway for them to drive business during slow periods. They have a steady business now, and the HVAC has kind of piggybacked on that. So they kind of changed their whole focus. So when do you know that's right versus it's more risky? And you answered it partly is just make sure
Yeah.
you're dialed into your main trade as it is. But how do you know and how do you introduce like do you go out and just try to find an electrician or do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I don't know that you ever truly know, right? But to the best of our ability to make sure everything's running fairly smoothly before we expand, I would say probably, and again, it's going to be kind of business by business related, which, we work when we work with our clients, no one process is ever the same. For me, it'd be legalities, right? Licensing. You got to have to go from HVAC to electrical in most states. I don't know about California, but I know in Indiana you have to have an electrical license. So you need a journeyman licensee, to be able to build that off of, and then it'd be the right person to be able to take that. And this is the hard part, finding the person that has the license and the
Right.
person that can take it on and run that department. That would be where I would kind of go towards first. But I think the main thing would be just to make sure you're getting licensed appropriately in that state, and then just building the right team to run that other division.
Yep. And one of your earlier statements you said about owning the home. What were you guys consciously doing when you were doing these multi trades to make sure that you own the home? Like were technicians, technician comes in for HVAC, were they going, "Hey, I noticed your outlet doesn't look like it's set up properly." I mean, like, what was the owning the home look like from a
Yeah.
practical standpoint?
Man, I think the biggest thing is club memberships. And we could have a whole call just talking about
Yeah.
club memberships, but it was part of the process. Every single service expert that went in, we call them service experts, every single technician that went into the home would talk about the club membership, which include all
Okay.
three. Right. So that was the lead into owning the home. If they had a club membership and we were able to do the services for all three, like that was it. Right. So I am a huge, huge, huge proponent of club memberships. Again, we could have a whole nother conversation around that because we could talk for hours on that. But the answer to your question is club memberships, getting them involved in club
Okay.
memberships. And some people, like a plumber goes in, they may not have an electrician, but they may have an HVAC company, right? You can still get the club membership because we made it inexpensive enough just to to be able to provide the service, and in hope someday we would become their HVAC company as well. But yeah, just club memberships is my easy answer.
Okay. And just on a side note on the club memberships, did you guys, when you had the three trades, was it you buy one club membership with all three trades, or did you have the option to go, hey, I just want HVAC?
So my personality and my skill set is to overcomplicate things.
Yeah, me too.
So I've done all of those things, Tyler. What I found was one. I circled all the way back around. We ended up having one that covered everything because it was so confusing. Oh, I have a plumbing membership,
Yeah,
but I don't
yeah.
have this. And you get it. So like the easy answer is I would do one.
Okay. And then, monthly payment or annual or option of
Either. I,
both.
I
Okay.
don't think there's a I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it really depends on the business, depends on what the client wants to do. I mean, I'm a big fan of monthly reoccurring revenue, but again, if somebody wants to pay the whole lump sum up front, so be it, right? I mean, we want to be their business of choice.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. I think that that's really good on the multi-trades, what I kind of want to talk about. I wanted to also get into, I believe, and hopefully I've already botched up my research once, so hopefully I don't strike out by the
I
end
don't
of the
know that that
show
was
here.
your fault. That
Uh,
may have been mine. So
no, I'm
let's
sure it's
let's
me.
move on.
Yeah. So this next one is about 90% profitability jump. So I believe this was at ARS Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Kind of just wanted to talk about a little bit what was involved in doing that, maybe how that relates to most shops that you see a lot of times that are probably having the same type of challenges. Can
Yeah.
you walk me through that?
Yeah, I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big P&L guy. It's making sure you know your numbers and you own your numbers. Because if you don't really know what action steps to take. So that was what I did the first 6 months I was there is I just did some serious analysis on it was really mostly in gross margin challenges, cost of goods, and then by department. So I really dove into that. What it came down to, Tyler, is mostly processes, just understanding what to do, right? So, I mentioned cost of goods, but a perfect example is the first year I was there, this isn't a cost of goods, it's an overhead item, but we were short on staff. We couldn't run all the calls we had, but we were spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing for TV, right?
Wow.
Which we couldn't run the leads we had. So I just put that on pause because we couldn't do it anyway. That saved us a lot of money to the bottom line just by doing that, right? So then we would focus on cost of goods by department, right? So gross margins, making sure we're job costing everything, especially the larger ticket items. HVAC install turned into job costing every single job, right? We wanted to figure out where some of our challenges were. Like, again, I can talk about this for several hours of the processes and procedures that were put into place, but I'm going to make it sound simple, but it was just that. I had a lot of sleepless nights over that first, few months
I
trying to
bet.
implement these things. We lost people, right? We lost people that didn't want to get on board. And again, I lost a lot of sleep over that, but it ended up paying off, and turning things around. So it was just, I think the thing for folks now is understanding what your numbers are, understanding the actions to take from those, and man, just staying consistent. I talk about consistency a lot because it gets hard, right? It gets hard to stay consistent. So just understanding the action items, sticking with it, it's gonna suck for lack of a better term. And you just got to stay consistent with it, right? And we preach that every single day today. Stay consistent with the process. It's going to turn around, and it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. What is there some reoccurring theme or something when you see trades owners come to you? Is it pricing? Is it overspending on marketing? Is it all of the above? Like what do you typically see when they do come to you as we're talking about improving profitability?
Yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of customizable by business. Most of the time, what I see is, ironically, you're probably find this funny, but like, ironically, most of our folks that come in don't spend enough on marketing and then wonder why the phones don't ring. But the most of the challenges is in their cost of goods, it's in their gross margin, it's not necessarily in their overhead. So it does become several things, right? It becomes pricing, it becomes inefficiency in the field, it could be a dispatching issue, right? We're discounting too much. We're not charging for all the material we're using. Like I can go on and on and on, right? But it's like
Right.
that's where the job costing comes from. When you come on board to CEO Warrior, during the onboarding, the very first thing you do is you dive in and you get your financials cleaned up. Which, a little plug here. I didn't ask you if I do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. We've added accounting services to CEO Warrior now,
Nice.
bookkeeping services, because we ran into a challenge of most of our clients coming in didn't have P&Ls or didn't have clean P&Ls, and
Yeah.
now we can do them for them. So like that's been a huge thing for me, being one of the financial people here, is just being able to review financials on a monthly basis like you should, right? So it's really just, man, I keep saying it, but it's just knowing your numbers and understand what to do with them.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. On this whole topic of a general manager in terms of a shop that say somewhere between 3 to 15 million, at
Mhm.
what point does an owner know to say, hey, this is time to bring in a GM? And then what's that? How do they find the right person? Because, I'm hearing you and you're like a numbers guy. You can look at a P&L, and I look within my client base that have GMs, and, I hear a lot of comments about the GMs, and sometimes they're very good, and sometimes they're like, well, he doesn't even really do GM stuff. We just kind of just have him look at the staff or whatever. So how do you know, like, when do you bring in a GM? When do you think's the right time? What are the signs? And then what's that profile if it were you trying to hire a GM that you would be looking for?
So that is a really, really great question. We see that as well, right? People being GMs and they don't really do GM
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, we
yeah,
see that every day too. I don't know that there is a specific profile, and I'm going to give you a good example. So one of my counterparts that works here, Kevin, he was a general manager, ran same types of business as I did. Both successful. Him and I are completely different personalities, right? So I think for me, what I think somebody in that role is understanding what your skill sets and passions are, and then I think a good general manager surrounds themselves with really good people, right? So I'll use me for example. I'm not a sales trainer. I don't like to train sales. I don't like to do role play. Like I just don't like this type of thing. I'm a numbers guy. So
Right.
what did I do? I surrounded myself with people that were really good at doing that.
Mm.
Right. So, and that's like, I didn't get where I didn't get here by myself. Right. So I had to surround myself with really great people. And I think that's where not only general managers, but owners miss the mark today, is thinking they have to be great at everything, and you don't, right? You just have to know what you're really good at, stay really good at it, hire somebody really good at the stuff you're not great at, and then hold them accountable to those things. So I don't know that there's a true personality trait.
Okay. When would you say introduced? Like, is there a certain threshold of profitability? Is there a certain revenue size? Like, when would you say,
Yeah.
hey, it's time for you to think about a GM?
All the above. I think when one of my clients comes to us and says, I want to hire a general manager, the first thing I'm going to say is, well, let me see your budget. Did you budget for it? Let me see your P&L. Let me make sure we can afford it. What's this person going to do? Are they going to help you generate revenue? Right? What are their expectations? Right? I want to create a bonus structure around for that person to make sure they're paying for themselves and in so many words. But I think that number is probably, if you held me to a number, I guess I'd say probably 5 million and above.
Okay.
You're probably ready for either a general manager, a director of operations, something kind of in that role between the owner and everybody else. The way I would like to build it out is owner, then I'd want to build out like filled leads, right? So people are still out managing people, but they're still generating revenue. And then that person, one of those people could potentially grow into somebody that runs those departments. So it would be a built out process, but it would be, I'd say probably 5 million or above. You probably need somebody in that mid-level management tier.
At that 5 million level, you're introducing, let's say, a GM role or some mid-management level role. Is that someone that is a technician that has strong technician experience? Is that maybe someone that understands the industry, but maybe they're not a technician? Like, what would be your general, like, hey, this is my profile that I'd be comfortable with?
Man, that's another tough one because
Sorry.
it's not always good technicians don't always make good leaders and
Right.
managers, right? And that's okay. So again, I'm not going to say there's a specific profile.
Okay.
I think it's the right person regardless of where they came from. Like I said, I had an inventory control background is what I had before I started in this industry. So did that help me here? Sure. Did it help me with plumbing, electrical, HVAC? Absolutely not. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I'm not smart enough. So like it's understanding, and again, certain technicians, and this applies to owners too, right? So like they're hands-on and really, really good at it, but don't always know how to run a business. So a
Right.
technician, don't get me wrong, I had technicians that worked for me back in the day that own their own businesses now. So it doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just got to be the right person. I mean, you got to set the right expectations, and they have to be developed. They have to be developed to see if they can even do that role.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of different profiles that are probably a good fit. And so it's
Yeah.
just what fits for your business. I think one thing my big takeaway from you was your self-awareness around what your strengths were and what your weaknesses were. So in your case, hey, I'm not really a sales guy, or I'm not really
Yeah.
interested in that, but I'm great at numbers. And
Yeah.
I think the owner that's considering a person for this role has to, if they were interviewing you, says, hey, this guy is going to have my operational side dialed in. How do I help him make up for maybe the sales side? What are we going to
Yeah.
do in that area to continue to grow and cover that area? So that's
Yeah, and
really
I
good
think the
feedback.
flip side of that too, Tyler, is like if an owner comes to me now and says I want to hire a general manager, like where we're going to start is going to be like, okay, list out everything you do and then tell me what you don't want to do anymore.
Mm,
Right? That's where we're
good.
going to start
Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
because now
Yeah.
we got to find the person that will do those things. Right? So if it's an entrepreneur type, big picture type owner, they need an operator like me, right?
Right.
So it just depends on the situation.
Right. And I think we always fall into this like, get out of the business. You're going to work on the business, I'll work in the business. And I
Yeah.
think we pass the whole discussion about, well, that works in phases. Like, you don't just all of a sudden you're out of the business. Like, you're still going to be doing some things in the business, maybe even forever. I don't know. It depends how big you get and how much your structure of management. But I think there's like this picture on the internet that you'll just get out of the business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that I mean that you're right. That's not reality, right? And I mean most business owners don't necessarily want out completely, right? So we have technicians that come in that, they're business owners now. They don't, we're always talking about getting out of a truck. Well, some of them don't necessarily want to be completely out of a truck. They just don't want to get in crawl spaces anymore or hot attics anymore. Right. So now they're doing out what they want to do. They're out in the field training and like you can still do that, right? Like it's what you want to do and what's the best thing for your business. And then we fill in the gaps of people that can do the other things.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. I like that. Hey, one other thing I want to talk about was related to How much do you look at when you're working with clients, utilization of technicians and then their actual efficiency? Like, do you break that down into numbers in
Oh yeah.
terms of it all the way down to like even a target billable rate where they should be at? I'm curious just like what your
Yeah.
process is for that.
Absolutely is the answer. I'm a big labor to sales ratio person.
Okay.
I love the billable efficiency idea. I think billable efficiency is super, super, super hard to track.
Okay.
So I leaned more towards, because I mean, normal service apartment's billable efficiency is somewhere in the 30% range, which if a guy works 10 hours a day and he's billing for three, like that makes most people want to throw up, right?
Right.
That's why we train on giving options, right? Take care of the customer while you're there, stay there all day. Every time you're in the truck, like you're losing money. So, but I spent most of my targets and goals are set off of labor percentages. They're what they got paid divided by what they generated. So that helps me give a quick snapshot. Like I'd love to track billable efficiency. I just think it's so difficult.
Yeah, I gotcha. Now, when you say, are you doing the standard kind of range, 17 to 20% is what you're kind of looking at? How do you deviate from that? Like, when is 17 more ideal than, I mean, is there some diagnostic or something you're looking at where, like, if I had someone come to me recently and they're 27% because they have an incentive plan and when it's fully loaded, it's 27%.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts when you hear that? Like, you're like, man, you're going to lose money, or it could make sense. Like, where do you land on that?
Next step I would take is just to dive into their total gross margin,
Okay.
right? Because so if you include burden rates and all of those things and commissions, yeah, so my target was 18%.
Okay.
I did 22% with commissions.
Okay.
So, and that was without tracking any kind of burden. So add another whatever 3 or 4% to that. So I'm not too far off from what you're saying. It's all driven. So that's why I went from labor percent down I dropped it to gross margin because the higher your average ticket, the lower your labor percent's going to be, but it's going to drive your material and equipment percent higher. Right. And then vice versa. So if I had a guy that was running a good labor percent, he may not have a good gross margin because he's doing higher average ticket stuff, but he's not charging the right price for the higher equipment. Right. So that's why I ended up breaking it down by gross margin by technician or by truck to the point of there was an expense of a helper that got charged to that. Right. There was a finance charge that got charged to that, like down all the way down as far as you could go because I wanted to see if that truck was truly profitable, not just on labor, but on all cost of goods associated. So when you can get down to that level, you can really start to see where some of your challenges are, right? And it doesn't mean and then that's coaching opportunities at that point, right? Because they may not even understand what the problem is until we talk to them, explain it, and show it to them.
Wow. So you're all almost running like a mini
By
P&L, profit and
truck,
loss for
by
each
truck.
truck. Wow.
Yeah,
How do you even get that data? Are you just taking, obviously payroll data, pretty
yeah,
straightforward, but I mean, are you taking some allocations on some of those expenses, maybe like workers' comp or I don't know, because even workers' comp, you could drive back if you
yeah.
wanted to do the exact amount. Do you do allocations for some things?
On like workers' comp and benefits and 401k and things like that, I just took a generalized percentage,
Yeah.
and it was the same for everybody. But I could track material based on purchase orders, right? Purchase orders by job attached to that person. I could run that on, I mean, I ran that on a weekly basis and then I could chew it up every month. So I could run material, I could run equipment, I could run subcontractors, I could run financing fees, I could run every single thing except what you're talking about, which is the burden rate. I would just use a flat percentage as a burden.
That's interesting. And what was your target typically you're looking for in terms of a gross profit margin that by truck that you'd go, hey, this is good, or hey, this is a red
Yeah.
flag?
So their target was 60%,
Wow.
and they were paid a bonus on anything over the 60%. Now, what I ended up doing was not worrying so much about the 60%, but worried more about the gross margin dollars,
Okay.
right? So if I set a revenue target and I set it at 60, if I set a revenue target of 40% or 40,000 at a 60% gross margin, right? Whatever those dollars were, I think it's like 24,000 or something. At 24,000 gross margin dollars, they got bonus anything above the 24,000 of gross margin dollars. Percentages don't pay the bills, right? The dollars do.
That used to
So
be my exact
it
line.
it
I
took it
used,
took like when I said I overcomplicate things, right? It took me a little
yeah,
bit to circle around to get
yeah.
to that. But that I'm a firm believer of that now is like we can talk about percentages, their targets, their goals. We want to build our prices at that. But at the end of the day, the dollars is all that matters.
Right. You're tugging at my heart. I used to have a staff and I used to be in the engineering services field and people would come to me and say, oh, I'm making 60% on the dollar, and I'd look at it and it'd be like $2 an hour they're making, and we were
Yeah.
making like 25 or 30 an
Yeah.
hour, and I'd be like, guys, the percentage I
Okay.
don't care about. Dollars pay the bills. Like that's all I care about. More dollars, I
Exactly.
know I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
not going to go out of business with dollars. I am going to go
Right.
out by percentages.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's interesting. That's funny.
Yeah,
Um,
'cause if you're doing a bunch of small repairs, right? I mean, you're gonna probably get a 70% gross margin, or if you're doing larger ticketed items, you're gonna get 50%. But I'll take 50% of 5,000 over 70% of 500, right? So
right, right,
like
and the
it's
logistics of 500 and the risk and the follow up and
oh
the
yeah, absolutely.
recalls and the
And that's where
yeah,
most of your liability and customer complaints come from.
yeah,
Are the smaller repairs.
yeah, yeah. No, that's all good stuff. Really good stuff. So, hey, the other thing I wanted to talk about is just, and it kind of falls under this, is I know you're really big on, we were kind of chatting about this, is how much revenue can be a lie. Like we hear, hey, I'm a
Mhm.
$10 million company, and I've seen it firsthand. I get to see their books, and it sounds like you do too.
Yeah.
And you'll see they're making 1%, 2% net profit. And it's like, wow, you're working really hard to bring almost nothing home. What are your thoughts around that? What do you usually see as problems that are causing that?
Yeah, I know when you and I were talking earlier, this I'm a little passionate about this.
Yeah,
So revenue, right, all over the internet, right, is flashy revenue. I'm 10 million, I'm 20 million. Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, and we've seen multiple companies that can do $1 million month and lose money. How is that even possible? Right? Like, what are we doing to make that even make that? Like you said, I mean, you mentioned it. I say this all the time. You just said it. Like, work way too freaking hard to not make any money. Like, I don't
right.
care if we did $1 million in revenue and I lost money, like I don't like we work too hard for that. There's no point in that. So I feel like it's kind of turning now, but profit used to be kind of a bad word in our
Mhm.
industry. I think it's shifting a little bit now, at least from the business owners and some of the coaches out there that talk revenue. Firm believer of I don't care what your revenue is, let me see your profitability. So again, that comes back to processes, procedures, making sure you're getting the right gross margins, making sure your overhead percentage makes sense, right? To generates to a bottom line. Then we can focus on growth, right? Then we can focus on growing the top line because now we have everything in place that we can sustain some of those growth challenges, right? Because as you grow from 2 to 5 to 7 to 10, like the problems just get bigger, right? So we want to make sure we have that structure in place so we can continue to be profitable. Otherwise, especially your labor and materials, it'll get away from you so fast you don't even know what happened, right? And those are your two largest expenses in your business. Yeah, it's just really making sure you're structured for that. And yes, I'm a big profit over revenue kind of person. Like, I don't care what your revenue is.
No, that's a good point. So, a lot of times the first inclination, let's use that $10 million company not making very much to the bottom line. The perception might be, hey, cut expenses. Is that where your mind goes, or your mind goes like, well,
Mhm.
no, there's probably some operational inefficiencies or whatever? Kind of take me through that, like how you're
Yeah.
thinking when you see that.
My first thought is never cut expenses. My first
Yeah.
thought is give me your P&L and let's dive into it, right? And I always tell people it could be generate more revenue, cut expenses, or both, right? So like, and you nailed it. There's more than likely inefficiencies in the business that you can fix. Pricing wise, right? Just dispatch wise, making sure the right person's going to the right call, cutting down, having I mean, a big one is inventory on your vehicles, right? Not going to the supply house all the time. Like that's a big one, especially in a large company like that. People are going to supply house all the time. That's doing nothing but costing us money. So like I would almost guarantee there's inefficiencies that we can fix prior to cutting expenses. So, it may be both, but I'm going to look at inefficiencies first.
How do you, Jason, get down as a coach? How do you get down to this level of detail to see these problems? Because, in an hour meeting with a client, sometimes it's hard to get that type of level of detail. Is it just having them walking through the whole process? Do you ever go out to their sites and kind of observe? Like how do you figure out some of these operational things can really sometimes be buried?
No, that's a really great question and good segue too. So we meet with our clients more than once a week, typically, minimum twice a month. I would always start with send me your P&L, right?
Okay.
And then I would do a deep dive in it outside of the meeting before I went into the meeting with them. I would go over things I was looking at, ask them questions. They'd leave with things they got to go find out from their accountant, whatever, like where did these expenses, right? All these things. And it would be a process of going through those things. It's usually a couple of month process of getting really everything dialed into where we can really read the right information. To your point, yes, we do go to people's businesses, and that's something we do here at CEO Warrior as well. And that is completely eye-opening, and that's life-changing. So like we actually have one coming up here in April where we're going to a client in Dallas. So we discover a lot of things, right? So it's interesting too that people, their employees will tell us things that maybe they won't, their owners, right? So that helps us get, because I mean, we dive deep. We dive into talking to every single person, and we go to their meetings, we go to their financial reviews. I mean, we do everything. So even some training along the way, if that's what they want while we're there. But yeah, just being on site and just sitting back and watching, man, we can learn so much as folks that's been in these businesses every single day. And you want to learn something about your business, go sit with your dispatcher. Like you'll learn everything. That's the cog that makes the wheel, the cog in the wheel.
Yeah, I had a guy, Cody Martinez, on my podcast and Cowboys in San Antonio. And, they went from, I think, 4 million to 10 million. They're at 20 million now, but
Nice.
he did what he calls call by call management on his
Yeah.
dispatch. And he actually got involved
Yeah.
in who got assigned which jobs. And, he really, like, for lack of better words, micromanaged it. But I mean
Yeah.
I mean that in a positive sense.
Yeah.
And it had just a dramatic change in his business. So it sounds like to the point of what you're bringing up, you could be pretty surprised if you listen to some of those calls.
Oh yeah. What the definition of call by call management is out in the industry now is, I mean, you mentioned micromanagement. It's a little bit of micromanagement to me. I'm bigger on dispatching for profit, which is what we teach,
Mm,
right? Right guy to right call, making sure they debrief after the call, making sure they did everything they were supposed to do, but not really communicating with them while they're at the call, right? Which is call by call. That's kind of what it is.
yeah.
You're in a Slack channel talking to the guy while he's there. So I kind of like a hybrid version, right? So I was talking to a client yesterday, and he was asking me about call by call, and then he told me what he was doing, and he wasn't really doing call by call. He was doing more of, this is what you do on every single call, and then I've got people that are going to oversee it and make sure you did those things, right? So it's holding people accountable to what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Hey, last topic I want to cover is
Sure.
just our limiting beliefs. I had a lady on my podcast, her husband Joey and Alyssa. Alyssa was on my podcast, and at one point they were kind of stuck, I think, around 2, 3, 4 million, and they were just like, "Hey, we want to get to 5 million, and that's going to be great." And then they got some coaches and got some people behind them that helped them to think bigger, and now they're at 10 million, thinking that they want to be 100 million someday. And you should just see her light up when she was explaining to me about how their whole mindset changed of just maybe getting to 5 million to now it's 100 million. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts around these limiting beliefs? What do you typically see when an owner comes to you, a trades owner comes to you, and how do they overcome that?
Again, I'm going to come back to consistency, right? So
Okay.
when they come back to us, a lot of these folks have limiting beliefs. And we've had several clients just like what you're talking about. We got to work through those things and prove it to them, right? So like, and I don't like to say it this way, but like it almost comes down to, hey, try this and let's see what happens. And then when it happens, now they start to believe a little more. They just got to be, they have limiting beliefs, but they got to be open to feedback. They got to be coachable. They got to be trainable. That's where they need to change their mindset. And once they've done that, then as long as they're ready to put the work in, we can get past that limiting mindset for sure.
So you do see it a lot, it sounds like, where folks come to you and maybe they're just limiting beliefs. What I love actually your concept of just try it. Like I think that's
Yeah.
healthy. Like
Yeah.
if we always act like we always have the perfect answer, I think we're doing a disservice to the client. So I
Yeah.
love that you're just like, hey, try it and see it for yourself. And
Yeah.
that, a lot of times the things we say, we believe more than what's that saying? Like, if I say it, I believe it. If you say it, I'm questioning it.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of getting them to see their own results and their belief
Yeah.
of it. But what is the most common one? Like, is it around revenue growth and getting bigger? I know revenue isn't necessarily what we're looking at, but is it around being able to be a bigger shop? Is it getting themselves out of the business? Like, do you see any pattern of limiting beliefs where you go, yeah, I see this all the time?
Yeah, I think the biggest limiting belief that we see, which
Yeah,
leads to all the other things you're talking about, them not having to do everything, right? Because they're the best at everything. The owner's in the business right now doing every single thing, and nobody can do it as good as them, right? They're not wrong. Nobody's going to do it as the way they did it or the way they're going to do it. However, people can be taught and trained to do it to move you on to do other things, right? So we were talking about earlier about working in the business and on the business and things like that. And some owners don't necessarily want to get out of the field per se.
right.
Go out and train people, right? Like you don't have to get out of the field. The idea is to do what you want to do and surround yourself with people that do the other things, right? I think the biggest limiting belief really is that I can't hire enough people because everybody's doesn't want to work. I cleaned that up a little bit. And the second thing is nobody can do it as well as I do.
That's a good one. Those are strong. That's the most common one. Both of those really are the most common is they can't find anyone good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that a million times, which is in every industry. I think people feel this way, and it's 99% of the time totally untrue. It's just a mindset. And
Yep.
then that's a good one. Nobody can do it as well as. And I love how you articulate that sometimes we'll throw a percentage on like, oh, well, they can do it 80% as good
Yeah.
as you. I like how you worded it. It was like to get you to move forward. Like they can do it good enough to get you to move forward. So,
Yeah.
and that's the most important part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk about this a lot is like they're never going to be you. So quit
Yeah.
thinking they're going to be you. That's your limiting belief.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, hey Jason, I want to wrap up here
Yeah.
before I do. Share with me a little bit about CEO Warrior, who's the ideal client that you're looking for that you think you can help, and where can people, your website is ceowarrior.com. Where
Yep.
can people reach out to if they want to just learn a little bit more about you and your business?
Yeah, perfect. Ideal client, anybody in the trades that needs help running their business. This business was developed from owners that realized they couldn't run a business. They learned how to run the business. They wanted to teach other people, right? So our ideal client is kind of twofold. One is I was a really good technician. I'm still a really good technician. I don't know how to run my business. I don't know how to train my people. I don't know how to do all those things. The other thing is maybe a larger company that needs to build some processes and create some efficiencies like we talked about earlier. So we don't have a revenue ideal client. We don't have any of that. We just need somebody that's an implementer in the business, right? And it could be the owner. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, you named the website. If anybody wanted to reach out to me directly, it's jason@ceowarrior.com. I'd be happy to speak to anyone. We have an event coming up in May, and I am apologizing because I don't have the dates in front of me. However, they are on the website you spoke about earlier, and it's just around recruiting and retention. So something we talked about earlier, and a lot of people say I can't find people, but they miss the fact that they can't keep people, right? So we want to talk about retention and culture as much as recruiting because it might be a retention problem, not a recruiting problem. So that's a little bit about us. Yeah, reach out if you want to chat.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Also, put your LinkedIn link in the show notes. I'll try to, when I publish this, I think this will publish in around late April.
Okay.
I'll put the link for people to be able to sign up to the recruiting and retention,
Yeah,
which
perfect.
retention is the golden key, right? Like
Yeah,
it's one thing to get them in the door. It's another thing to be able to keep the great
keep them.
people
Absolutely.
for a long
Yeah.
term. So that's great.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Jason, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. I think you dropped a lot of wisdom today. I'm confident people got a lot out of this, so I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a blast. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Appreciate it.
It's profit and grit, not luck and a wish. From the wrench to the spreadsheet, we're stacking our chips. Slow season hits, man, we tighten the ship. It's the blue collar way we build.